Welcome everybody, and thank you for listening to the Better Bushcraft Podcast, the place where you will learn the skills to succeed on your next outdoor adventure. My name is Tommy Clark, your host, and this is episode 14, Bushcraft Tips Series number 1. Now, before we get into today's show, I'm going to let you guys know what's been going on here at Better Bushcraft, and in my life in general. I've kind of been it's kind of sketchy the last couple months doing these podcast series and put up videos, and I apologize for that. There's been a lot going on with my new job and stuff like that, and it's been all good stuff, so I can't complain there. But I really want to refocus and dedicate time to this podcast, as well as putting out a lot of videos for you guys on the website, because I've been doing bushcraft stuff on the weekends, not every weekend, but I try to get out there quite often, and I really want to put out all these videos and podcasts out there so you guys can, learn along with me. So anyways, hopefully my plan is to redo this thing and actually get one episode out a week and stay consistent over the summer and spring, since the weather's really nice for bushcrafting and stuff, especially here in Kansas right now. The weather's been anywhere between 70 degrees, which was awesome the last couple days, to up to 90, so that's pretty hot too. But anyways, so let's see, what am I going to do this week? I'm going to be putting out a couple videos this week, and I'm going to shoot those today so I make sure they get out here the next day or two. And the first video I'm going to do is over my new pouch that I made. It's a project that I did a couple days ago, almost a week ago, looking online, and I kind of saw a pouch that I wanted. But anyways, I made my own, and I'm really excited about it, so I'm going to show you guys that, as well as a video over how to protect your leather gear, like your knife sheaths or any pouches or bags and stuff that you carry that has leather, and just a really quick and simple tip how to keep that gear nice and keep it from cracking and all that good stuff. So anyways, also the website is going to be getting an overhaul. I haven't really touched the actual website for a while, but I want to dedicate time to make a lot of videos for it, and for the podcast as well. So really load up that website so you guys can come back and check it out, and it'll be full of new stuff and new content quite often. So anyways, what my idea is for this podcast itself is to be doing an overview of bushcrafting tips, and this is going to be series 1, and it's going to be probably the shortest one because I just thought of it and I just wrote out some ideas. But what this really is going to be about is just a whole bunch of different tips that don't really go into like a full-length podcast, but just little things here and there just to give you guys some ideas to help you out, either with your gear or places to go bushcrafting or skills or anything like that. So anyways, like I said, this is series 1, and I'll probably be doing quite a few of these, but these are just the ones I thought off the top of my head, simply because a lot of these I ran into the last couple weeks going out bushcrafting with my buddy. And like I said, I've been bushcrafting on the weekends here and there, or even in my backyard, just messing around with fires and different ways to light a fire and different shelter building stuff. And the last trip that my buddy and I went to was actually just for, 5 or 6 hours or so. And we just went out to our land that his parents own right in the middle of a pond, and it was a good time. We went out there. We started a fire. We worked on a lot of fire making stuff, because I don't know about you guys, but it's almost disappointing when you get a fire going too quickly when you're just having fun. Now, if you needed a fire, I'm sure you'd be like, oh, I'm glad that was easy. But when you're just going out there just to have fun and work on some skills, and then you light the fire within the first, minute or two of, after you gathered all your stuff, it's like, okay, now what? So anyways, we actually spent time making fire. So we got our fire going, and then we worked on building birds' nests and stuff like that, and we're using different natural materials to light fires and stuff like that. So it was a good time. We spent maybe I don't know, 45 minutes or so just going out, say, hey, if we didn't have this material that we know works, what could we find around here that would also get a fire going for us? So we had a lot of fun with that. We cooked some apple cobbler made by Backpackers Pantry, I believe it was, kind of like Mountain House, one of those pre-made packaged foods, and it was really good. I was really surprised. We just made, I took out 2 of my cook pots and made the apple cobbler mix in one and then like the breading in the other, and we had that done in about 15 minutes or so. And it was really just kind of fun to sit around the fire and chat about bushcrafting and stuff like that and have a little snack. And so that's basically what we did last time. And I just want to let you guys know that even if the trip isn't that long, you guys can still work on your skills and stuff. You don't have to plan this big old planning out a huge trip or whatever just to go bushcrafting. But anyways, I do hope to go out for an overnighter here in the next week or so, and hopefully take my camera along and shoot a lot of video for that. So anyways, with all that said, let's get into the bushcrafting tips that I said that we're going to be covering. And the first tip is something that is a lot of you probably know about and say, well, duh, but it's something I didn't do a couple times ago, and I kind of regret it now. And that is clean your knife after each use of going out bushcrafting. Now, that seems pretty simple. You know, obviously you don't want to keep stuff on your knife blade and put it away. Well, a few times ago, actually this is probably a month or 2 ago, we went out bushcrafting, me and my buddy, and we were gathering fat wood. I don't know if it's technically called fat wood because it's from a cedar tree, but we saw some cedar trees and they were oozing can't think of the word. Anyways, I was making fat wood pretty much. So I dug my knife into some of the cedar trees and gathered some of that sticky sap and stuff and made a fire. No big deal, right? Well, I put my knife away in the sheath, and I put my sheath in my bag and got home and left my bag, where I usually do, and I didn't touch it for a few weeks. And then I got all my stuff back out, and I cleaned off my knife and noticed that sappy stuff or something I got into with my knife put a patina in a couple spots on my knife. And it's my really nice Blind Horse Knives Bushcrafter knife, and it's got a couple stains, if you will, on it now, which isn't that big of a deal. Doesn't damage the integrity of the knife or anything like that, but it just isn't as pretty as I was hoping to have it for a long time. So I was kind of bummed about that. I know I can, take some steel wool or something and go at it, but I really just don't want to mess with it. So I'm going to leave it for now. And I thought about even just putting a whole patina on my knife like I did on my Mora and stuff like that, but I kind of wanted to keep it the nice shiny way that it looks. So I'm kind of in between of what I'm actually going to do on that. But anyways, the tip is just to be sure to clean your knife after each use. After you're done with using it in the field or whatever, just kind of wipe it off with a cloth as well as you can. It might still have some, sticky stuff on it, or it might not be as clean as you want. But then when you get it home, a simple thing to do is just take some cotton balls with some rubbing alcohol and clean off your knife real nice. Make sure you get the handle in between the cracks and all that, and put it away nice and clean. So that is my first tip for you guys, so you guys don't end up having a whole bunch of stains and stuff on your knife. And if you patina your knife ahead of time, well, then you don't really have to worry about it. But it's still a very good idea to keep your knife nice and clean. Along with that, keep it sharp. Just sharpen it. I sharpen my knives pretty much every time I go out, just to make sure they're nice and sharp. But there's nothing worse than taking your knife out there and it doesn't do what you need it to do, especially if you're processing fish or something like that and you kind of butcher the thing. So keep your knife clean, keep it sharp. Easy deal. All right, number 2, be sure you bring bug spray, especially now. I don't know about where you live, but ticks are really bad right now in Kansas just because it didn't really get down cold enough during the winter. So ticks are really bad. We've been having instances of just walking in the like people go to the park that is nice and maintained and they come back with ticks. So when we go out bushcrafting in the tall grass and all that good stuff, we really got to be careful. So be sure you bring some bug spray. Be sure it has enough DEET in it or whatever you need to keep the bugs off, and spray yourself with that before you go out, and then check yourself after you get home just so you don't get sick or anything like that. So number 2 is just bug spray. Alright, number 3, this was something I ran into. We had some fish that we were going to cook the other day, and we didn't really have a good way to cook it just because we've made a improvised basket, if you will, before with sticks, and it works fine for a little bit and then it burns down. But I was trying to think, what's an easy way to carry like a fire, a grill pretty much. And I looked around, and there are some really nice heavy duty ones, but they kind of have a lot of weight to them, and I didn't really want to carry those heavy things around in my pack for something that I might not use but once every 3 or 4 times I go out there. So I was looking around, and like at Walmart or your local grocery store, they carry those disposable cheap fire grills around, like the charcoal and stuff. The ones where they even come with like a charcoal container underneath, like a tin pan pretty much, and you can have a small fire. Well, what you can do is just take that lid off of it. It's very flexible, it weighs pretty much nothing, and put it in your pack. And if you keep it like towards the back where my hydration bladder is on my Maxpedition backpack, it's not in the way, and it weighs nothing. And then whenever I need it, I can just pull it out, use it, and if it lasts 2 times, and that's great, and then just throw it away. So that's something simple and easy for you to take with you to cook up some fish that you might catch on the trail, or maybe like some potatoes or something that you carry in with you as well. So a cheap fire grill, probably like, I don't know, $2 at most, and you have a really awesome way to cook some stuff and not have to worry about it. So that was my tip number 3. Let's see, what else do I have on here? Oh, building bird nests for a fire. A lot of people have a problem building a really good bird nest that I've noticed, and I watched a really good video by Dave Canterbury on his YouTube channel, and he was talking about the need for more than one medium, and basically he was talking about how you need to have different types of material to make a really good bird's nest. So I usually try to go for 3. Like, I start off with some dry grasses, and that's like the largest material that I have, and I gather a good chunk of it. Don't be worried about making too big of a bird's nest, because, I mean, obviously you can take some of it off if you need to, but most people that I see, they make these really small ones, and it doesn't work quite as well. So I usually take a lot of dry grasses, and then I take some thin bark off like a cedar tree or whatever trees I'm right by, something like paper thin pretty much, and work that in there, and also some fluffy materials that you can find off plants and other places. But you know, you just take that stuff, break it down in your hand so you've got a lot of the good surface area, mix it all in, and then you have a better chance for a nice bird's nest. And what you want to do is, when you get an ember going in that bird's nest, is to lift it up above your face. Pretty much you're holding it eye level, and blow from the bottom and up. And what that will do is allow air to go through and up, and you're building the heat throughout the bird's nest, and you have a better chance for a fire. You don't just put it on the ground and start blowing directly down on it. That's not the best way to get it going. So just a little tip, if you are having a little trouble building your bird's nest, I suggest you look it up on YouTube on a couple different videos. You can find it. And I was thinking about just showing you how I do it as well, so it gives you just another angle or another video about it. So that is I think the 4th tip. And number 5 is upgrade your gear when necessary. Okay, so this one came about actually a few months back, and I don't think I've talked about it yet, but I have a lot of different gear. Some is really high quality, some is, you know, Walmart stuff, and it does a job as well. And a lot of people are afraid that if they don't have the top of the line everything, then that's not good enough. And that's not true. You can use inexpensive items that will work really well. But when you use a piece of gear and it fails, that gives you a heads up on you needing to upgrade it. And where I had this happen to me was, it was actually quite a few months ago. It was still really cold outside. The ground was frozen. And my buddy and I wanted to go fishing. And I was digging with my plastic shovel that I always carry with me to, dig fire pits and stuff like that. Well, it was doing pretty well, and I started digging with the plastic shovel that I bought from Walmart for like $3 or whatever, and then it just snapped in half. And I was kind of disappointed because I thought it was going to be an all year round piece of gear, and obviously it wasn't. So that kind of put a damper on digging for worms with that. So I went out and bought a metal digging, pretty much a little trowel, and it works really great. So I know that's a short story, but basically just gives you an idea. If you're using something and it breaks on you, or it fails, or it doesn't work, or if you bought some fire tinder that you thought would be really cool and it doesn't do the job, another place where that's really popular of happening is those magnesium bars. If you buy a cheap magnesium bar and you scrape off a lot of stuff and you spend like 20 minutes getting a big old pile and then you light it and then it just doesn't do anything, that's a heads up. Get rid of that item, upgrade your gear to something that's going to work. So I did that with my metal shovel, and now I'm really loving it. It weighs a little bit more, so you kind of have to put a factor in for that, but it's definitely worth its weight because it's digging better fire pits and stuff like that. So don't be afraid to upgrade your gear, and it doesn't have to be necessarily more expensive. I think this metal one was only like a couple dollars more, about the same size, and it does 10 times better job. So that is another tip for you. Tip number 6, I believe, is to pack for each trip. Now, I've always carried too much stuff. That's one of my downfalls. But you don't need everything all the time. And I've kind of been working on that more than anything the last couple times me and my buddy went out. I usually have my bag just packed full, full fishing kit, full overnight kit, full fire tinder kit, full. I got my clothing, I got my blanket and tarp and few knives and knife sharpeners and my Esbit stove and lots of food and water and blah, 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 blah. Well, I carry all that stuff and it's great, but if we were only going to to our Bushcraft site, and it's less than a mile away from town, and it's not like if we get stranded out there I'm going to have to live off my stuff. That's just not the situation that I was in. I was in a very comfortable situation where we could walk anywhere in about 10 minutes and be fine. So I decided to start learning to unload a lot of my stuff. I took out my fishing kit because I knew we weren't going to go fishing. I took out my clothes. I took out my tarp because we didn't have to build a shelter because we have our own natural shelter there. And I just took my small fire tinder kit because I'm very comfortable with the stuff that I carry, that I know I'm going to have sure fire every time in most conditions. And it just made hiking or just walking in there a lot more comfortable, and I had enough room, so if we found some stuff around there like cattails or natural tinders, I can shove in my pack and I have to like cram it in like a tiny little corner. So that's just a tip for you. You don't need everything all the time, and it helps you learn and adapt, like, what do I need for the situation? And yes, you're always going to pack a little bit more than necessary. I'm not saying go out there with just a knife and a canteen, which is another great skill to work on, don't get me wrong, but for something that is going to be more enjoyable and just for a fun trip, learn what you need, what you don't need. Keep a track of, like I went out there for a day or even overnight. What did I use? What did I not even touch? Which pockets did I not even open? And then after doing it a couple times, you can be like, okay, I don't really use this item that much. Maybe I don't need to bring it this time. So just learn to pack for each trip. Like I said, it'll save on weight. There's more room in your bag for stuff to gather. And it kind of actually makes you work smarter with what you're doing. So that's just another tip for you there. Tip number 8, which isn't really a tip, I don't think, but cattails are growing right now, at least here in Kansas. Where we are is right next to the pond, like I've shown you in a video. I mean, our fire pit is like, I don't know, 12 feet away from the water on one side and about 20 feet away from the other side. So there's a lot of cattails growing, and I watched a video from Dave Canterbury again. I mean, I love his stuff. If you guys don't check out his YouTube channel at least once a week, I definitely suggest that. He adds stuff quite often. But anyways, we picked some cattails, and I kind of ripped off the outer coating, and I ate the bottom portion of it, the white portion of it, and it wasn't too bad. I'm going to try to make some flour with it too, how he shows you in that video, and I might even cook up some of that cattail too on my next fire. But it's just something to keep an eye out for if cattails grow in your area, to watch that video, especially from Dave Canterbury, about them. And they have a lot of medicinal properties, food properties, and fire making, you name it. So I suggest that you watch videos that deal with plants that are in your area, and kind of learn more about them. Learn what can you use for, for example, like the cattails. I didn't know that if you ripped off some of the outer coating and you kind of slid your hand down the stalk of it, it has that almost aloe vera type quality to it, and you could put that on fire burns, and it helps protect that and soothe it. So I didn't know that. I thought that was really cool. So anyways, just learn about plants in your area and go out there and find them and kind of mess around with them, make them in food or what have you. So that's another tip for you. And the last tip I have is make your own gear. And I'm going to be showing you that in that video, like I said, about the leather pouch that I made. But that's how I got the idea for it. I wanted to buy one that I saw online, and then I looked a whole bunch of them up, and a lot of them cost too much, at least in my opinion. I'm sure they're great quality handmade pouches, but they're like $100+ each, and I'm like, man, I don't want to spend $100. And the pouch that I'm talking about is just a small belt carry pouch that will keep a lot of your everyday carry stuff in there. So I have like my fire steel and fat wood and a small emergency kit and some tinder and a spare knife and bug spray. I mean, this pouch isn't that big, but I wanted something cool that I can carry all my gear in. So I decided that I was going to look around my house to see what I had made out of leather, and I found something that I made it with, and it worked great. So if you see something that you want, but it kind of costs too much, or for some reason you can't buy one, learn how to make your own and adapt it to yourself. I really love my pouch. I think it turned out great. It works awesome for me, and it's cool to say that I made it, and it fits my style of bushcrafting perfectly. So just give you an idea, there's a lot of places online that you can learn how to make stuff. Instructables.com has a lot of cool bushcrafting type stuff on there, as well as every other project under the sun. But that's a good place to start. Look it up on YouTube. Just type it in Google. There's a lot of instructionals on how to make knives and pouches and bags and gear and modify your stuff. So just give you an idea. Don't be afraid to make your own gear, and I'm sure you're going to love it. And like I said, it's cool to say that you made something. So, all right, well, that's pretty much it. For this week, I'm going to start a new section 2. It's called the Skill to Learn. And this week's skill to learn, if you've never done it, is making char cloth. And for you that don't know, char cloth is pretty much like it sounds. It's a charred piece of cloth, usually around 3 inches by 3 inches, that you can strike a fire still to, or use a magnifying lens and get an ember growing real quick. And you can use that to start a fire. So a couple tips on that. You got to use 100% cotton t-shirts is probably the best way to do it, or using denim. or lamp wicks that you can buy at the store. Basically, you cut the shirt or whatever you have into small pieces. You put it in a tin that has a lid. You kind of puncture a tiny little hole on top of the lid for the oxygen to escape, but it doesn't allow oxygen in, so the material can't combust and catch on fire. What you do is you put it in a fire, you leave it in there for about 15-20 minutes or so, remove the tin from the heat, and what you don't want to do is open it right away. You want it to cool down until it's able to touch with your hands, and then you can remove the char cloth. It's a really simple process. There's more to it, a little bit more to it than what I said. So if you don't know how to do it, go on YouTube and just type in how to make char cloth, and you can find a dozen plus videos. Well, I should say probably 100 videos on how to make char cloth. So just watch one of those. Make your own char cloth. I guarantee it's a great practice, and it's something that you can keep in your pack, and you know that you have a great way to start a fire. So that's a skill to learn this week. All right, guys. Well, that was a show. Like I said, I'm going to be trying to put a show out once a week now. Bear with me as I get back on schedule, and I have a lot of great info and videos to bring your way. So if you want to contact me, you can send me an email to idea@betterbushcraft.com for ideas for the show. I'd love you guys' input. If you want something done for the show or for a video, just send me it. I will probably 95% chance that I'm going to do it, because I love getting great ideas from you guys. So send me an idea or questions or videos you want to see. Also, let me know how you found out about the show or website. I'm kind of interested in different places that you guys are coming from, and I'd like to know what you guys are doing also. So if you've been on a bushcrafting trip recently, or camping, hiking, anything like that, send me a little story. I'll be sure to put it on the podcast. Other people like to hear those stories and get inspired. So, all right, guys. Well, that's it for show number 14, and hopefully we'll be sending out a new podcast next week. So you guys take care and get out bushcrafting. Bye.